We've done it. It's time for a St. Patty's Day episode on this wonderful Tuesday. Should be spectacular. Let's see how. Alrighty. Should be interesting. We talked about the mind and body when it comes down to addiction and alcoholism and all that jazz. But we know that when people drift away from purpose and connection, the struggle goes much, much deeper than we want to admit. What are you doing, Sponge? Many people find themselves caught in addiction, of course, right? Eventually discover that the problem they face is not only physical and emotional, but something that reaches into the spiritual part of our life as well. Addiction, it can appear on the surface as chemical dependency, right? We say, oh, look, this person, they're addicted to a drug, they're addicted to a chemical, they're addicted to, they are addicted to heroin. Let's say, okay, they're addicted to a specific drug, right? We'll say that. But there's a certain physical component involved, of course. Physical, of course, when substances affect your brain and your body and how they work. But many people in recovery realize that even when the physical drug is taken away, right? That physical thing is actually gone. The drug is no longer there, right? Your struggle, your imbalance, your lack of focus, your damage is still there. So just because you took away the drug doesn't mean that everything is going to get better. And that deeper struggle, of course, is the feeling that something inside is not in balance. You know what I'm talking about, folks? It doesn't feel right. Something leaves a person searching for relief without fully understanding exactly what it is they're looking for. We know that we don't feel right, but we don't really understand why we don't feel right. And no matter what we do, we can't feel better unless we put ourselves into a intoxicated state of mind and we're all fucked up all the time and we can't even, get by in actual life. You're not going to actually overcome things long term if we don't fix that spiritual side of this issue. Now, this insight, of course, reflects something that recovery literature has been emphasizing for decades. People often discover that sobriety requires more than simply stopping a behavior. It requires rebuilding the internal framework that gives your life meaning. Yikes. That's some pretty hard stuff, right? But we're going to get into it because we're going to get into the reading from the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. The step one discussion says, who cares to admit complete defeat? Who likes to admit complete defeat? Practically nobody, of course. No one likes to admit defeat. This passage describes one of the first spiritual challenges people encounter in recovery. admitting that something is wrong and that help is needed. That is two big things that's difficult to do, and it requires humility, honesty, and a willingness to confront a deeper issue beneath the surface. And a lot of people don't want to do that. It's no fun, it's icky, it's difficult, it's uncomfortable, and it's definitely not very fun to start. But this reading, of course, from the 12 and 12 reminds us that the first step towards healing often begins with honesty, right? And we can't be honest with each other if we're not honest with who? Ourselves. Come on, friends. Nobody can be inside your head, and you can put on whatever face you want to the rest of the world. But at the end of the day, you have to live with yourself, and you have to die with yourself. We're born alone. We die alone. We may have people surrounding us, but in our minds, in our heads, and in our souls, it's us and whatever we decide is what reality is, you know? And some of us have pretty strong feelings on what it is, and other people have no fucking clue. But every one of us has a deep-seated need to fill that hole inside our human hearts. And we fill it with something, right? So we have to decide, what are we going to fill ourselves with? But recovery begins with that acknowledgement of something inside of our life becoming what? Unmanageable. That's a word that we hear over and over again in recovery literature. Right? This is unmanageable. My life is unmanageable. Oh, I can't do this. Can't do that. Now, just because something is unmanageable doesn't mean that you don't have power. And yes, it's very tricky sometimes where they say you got to surrender, but you can overcome. You have to lose yourself to gain yourself. You have to surrender all to win. What? People, if I went in somewhere and I'm still tweaked out of my mind or fucking just coming off a big old bender, I'm not going to understand that shit. What I'm trying to tell you, friends, is if you are in that state of flux when you're trying to figure out what's going on, just stick around and it will work. But you got to keep coming back, and you got to be honest. And that's really the only things that you need to start is honesty and to keep coming back. Because if you're honest, and people will ask you questions and you're honest about it, you will start growing and you will start changing. And then the world around you will start changing, and you will start changing the world around you. But like physical and emotional and spiritual imbalance and damage, part of that it does to you is much harder to fix than the physical part. The physical part is very, very easy to fix in terms of stopping a drug addiction. But this observation in this sense captures an important reality of addiction recovery. Removing a substance may address the physical component, but the emotional and spiritual wounds often remain long after detox has ended. You know what I mean, friends? Without addressing these deeper wounds, that cycle of addiction can continue even when the drug itself is temporarily removed from the situation, which is why you go to rehab for 30 days and then you come back to your regular life and everyone's like, oh, you're better, but you're really not, because you haven't actually made a change, right? But the drug has been gone and you maybe cleared your mind out a little bit, but you still haven't made an actual change in your emotional and spiritual state. We got to get into some keywords, friends. Number one, spiritual malady. It's a term used in recovery literature to describe the internal emptiness or imbalance that often drives addictive behavior. Addiction is what you see because of what's going on inside you. So when you just try to stop the drug or the act of addiction itself, it's not going to work, which is why I just say no. And the whole war on drugs and throwing people in jail, thinking that we're going to change people like this through legislating and harm and threats and punishment and even the threat of death, does not work. We know it doesn't. The facts are there. We see it all around us every single day. Denial, my friends, and that's a very nice one to get into. The psychological defense mechanism that we all have that allows individuals to minimize or ignore the severity of a problem. Friends, we have a world in denial right now. We have tons of people that are just, sadly, people that are in charge of making decisions that affect the rest of us are in denial about the way the world works or what's going on in the world. Everyone want to talk about it. And I'm talking about just about drug addiction, right? That doesn't even get into any of the other crazy socioeconomic issues that affect our world on a day-to-day basis that people just refuse to talk about, amongst each other. Everybody sits and only talks with the people that completely agrees with their little tiny little version of it, and they don't even get exposed to different ways of thinking. Surrender, the act of accepting help and recognizing that personal control alone may not be enough to solve a problem. Just being in control of it isn't going to fix it. So let me go grab some more water and I'll be back in just a second. All right, friends, put down your drinks and hold on your butts because we're getting into this. We are not stopping until we're through this whole thing. We're in segment 3 of 5, surrender, the act of accepting help and recognizing that personal control alone may not be enough to solve that problem. When we talk about problems, we need to get into the idea that you can't just fix them one way. We have to fix them from a multifaceted angle. And what we're going at this at is the mind, body, spirit connection. The mind. Addiction often begins as an attempt to manage emotional discomfort, right? We're not feeling good, we're feeling icky, we're not quite on the level that we want to be on. So we switch what we're doing, right? But not in a healthy way. And over time, the mind becomes conditioned to associate relief with the substance or behavior being used. That association can become incredibly powerful because the brain learns to expect relief from the very thing that is causing long-term harm. It's like, hey, this is making me feel good now, so it's got to be good for me, right? Wrong. In the long-term aspect, it's going to fuck up your life. But when at the very minute that you're using it, it's making you feel good and you're okay with it, right? Because you can think about that worry another time. I just have a drug problem, right? I just need to think a little harder. I just need to work a little harder at it. That mindset is in the minds of so many people who are not drug addicts that think, oh, they can just do what I say. What I want to quit doing this, I just don't do it because it's going to affect my life negatively. Well, this mindset, of course, reflects that internal battle that many people face before accepting help. You may think, oh, I just need to do this better. You got people outside telling you that, hey, if you just worked harder at it, you could succeed. So in turn, you're telling yourself, hey, if I just work harder at it, then I can succeed. But what does working harder at something look like? Well, it looks like different things for different people, but in reality, it means asking for help. And this mind tries to solve these problems alone quite often, even when repeated attempts have already failed. They say, oh, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. That's silly. I mean, it's a good catchphrase, but it's difficult to understand because people do it all the time. So it can't be insane because not everybody's walking around insane, but they make stupid fucking problems into big, gigantic, complicated ones, right? And this whole thing that you can do things over and over again and still continue to fuck up. And then other people are just like, well, just try harder at it this time. You're just going to fuck up that much harder until you truly change and think outside the box. And when you're by yourself, thinking outside the box means thinking with other people, right? The National Institute on Drug Abuse reports that about 60% of people with substance use disorders also experience a co-occurring mental health condition, my friends. This means that it means that we can see how closely addiction is connected to emotional and psychological struggles. And we know that when you add those two together, you get spiritual struggles rather than existing as an isolated problem in and of themselves. So you can't fix one without the other. And in turn, you can't fix the thing that when you put the two together, you get Captain Planet, right? The body, well, addiction has deep emotional and spiritual components. We talked about the mind. It's time to talk about the body now. The physical effects on the body can also become severe over time. Substances, they alter brain chemistry permanently. They affect physical health and create withdrawal symptoms, of course, that make stopping extremely, extremely, extremely difficult. Even when someone recognizes the damage being done, the physical dependency can create a powerful cycle that reinforces behavior, tells you how to get out of that pain, and it gets harder and harder to get out of it every single time. And the physical part of addiction that can be fixed easily, sometimes with chemicals, sometimes with lack of chemicals, sometimes with keeping chemicals out or in, is how we can figure out what's going on with the body part. But the physical struggle of addiction is real and often painful. So when someone says, hey, just stop, they don't think that, hey, when this person stops, they're going to get physically tortured. That's literally what opioid withdrawal is. It's physical torture. I would not wish it on anybody that I dislike. It is terrible. And when you can't have the drug and your body is craving it, it's not about it's not about whether you're a bad person or have low character or your bad morals or you're not trying hard enough. It is literally torture. So if you haven't been through it, don't knock it till you tried it. So if you've never been through withdrawal and you're telling someone to just say no or to just quit, you're a fucking idiot and you're an asshole. And now that you've heard this, you have zero excuses to ever talk like that again. The CDC reports that over 107,000 drug overdose deaths occurred in the United States in only 2022. That is a solid number that we know it for a fact happened, right? This number highlights severe physical consequences that addiction has on people. The overall ending of drug use oftentimes is death. The body cannot handle it. The body is not made for it, and people overdo it just like humans continuously do. And this cycle has been left unchecked. Well, I mean, it's been talked about now and it's kind of in check, but it's still not truly being in check because we have so much more good that we could do in terms of drug addiction and helping people. And we know that when the body and the mind are affected, the spirit is not far behind. Beyond the mental and physical aspects of addiction lies that deeper question of purpose and meaning. When people lose their sense of direction in life, substances can begin to fill that space where meaning once existed. There was meaning in our lives before drugs. So you got to find that meaning and then build off of it. Well, they convince all these people that they don't have a problem with spirituality, my friends. We've all been convinced, or we've been convinced that it's just a willpower problem. It's just a substance problem. If we just could stop the flow of drugs from the borders, then we would fix the opioid epidemic. That's insane. That's ridiculous. The amount of prescriptions that are turning people into drug addicts are just through the roof. And this, of course, reflects something many recovery programs emphasize. Healing often requires reconnecting with values, purpose, and a sense of life that is part of something bigger. Now, the Gospel of John, it definitely speaks to this. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. John 10:10, of course. This verse highlights this contrast between destructive patterns that drain life and the possibility of a fuller, healthier existence. So you, on one side, you have something that is there just to destroy and to kill, like a thief in the night. And on the other side, you have life and goodness and happiness. Now, we don't have to mention this in terms of like Christianity or, Jesus on one side and the devil on the other. We can relate this to all versions of major world religions, of course, and basic morality structures of good and bad. Research published in the Journal of Substance Abuse Treatment found that the individuals who report strong spiritual or religious engagement are about 25 to 30% more likely to maintain long-term recovery from addiction. So the proof is out there, friends. If you can find your spiritual side, you can have a higher likelihood of not falling back into drug addiction, because we know that when you fix that spiritual malady, it also works its way backwards. So these things work both ways. They affect negatively one way and positively one way, and negatively one way and positively another. Addiction is rarely just a chemical problem, we know that, and rarely just an emotional struggle, or one or the other. It's often the result of an imbalance that touches every part of our life, affecting the mind, the body, the spirit, simultaneously. Recovery, that is, requires the exact same thing. More than simply stopping a behavior, it requires rebuilding this internal foundation that allows someone to live with purpose, with honesty and connection. It's like I said, if you want to get healthy and off of drugs, you need to keep coming back, and you have to be honest, and you have to donate yourself to the community in which you want to put yourself into. But that's it, my friends. That is segment 3. We did it. We got through it. It's time to go to segment 4. Because when people try rebuilding their lives, they don't do it in isolation from the world around them, right? The society we live in, of course, shapes how we think about responsibility, accountability, and power. And sometimes these influences can make the struggle even more complicated. It's time to talk about something difficult, friends: power, hypocrisy, and the human connection. As people begin rebuilding their lives in recovery, they often discover that the struggle is not happening in isolation, right? Individuals trying to live more honestly and responsibility are still operating inside a world filled with competing messages about success, about power, about accountability. On one hand, recovery asks people to examine themselves honestly, take responsibility for their actions, and make amends wherever possible. You should try not to do the wrong thing. And then on the other hand, we have a broad culture that celebrates shortcuts, that rewards manipulation, and sometimes excuses behavior that would otherwise be considered destructive. That contradiction can create frustration because people trying to live with integrity, right? If you're trying to live with integrity, begin noticing how frequently society rewards the opposite. And this, my friends, is not going to be easily heard by some folks, and it's going to be outright refuted by others and completely denied by the rest. It's so twisted that we have entire groups of people that have extreme amounts of power and extreme amounts of wealth and extreme amounts of influence. And then we have so many others that have absolutely nothing. And when people have lack of power and choice and control in their own lives over that, especially over basic things, it's easy to get out of control. And it's easy to distract. It's easy to just zone out. It's easy to tune out. It's easy to click no. It's easy to say, I'm not going to listen to this. It's easy to say, oh, that doesn't equal what my core values are. That, not core values, but that doesn't equal what my comfortable value is. Not core value, but comfort value. When power is combined with that lack of accountability, it can distort values and culture. And that's what we have. We have a culture and system that rewards self-interest instead of responsibility. And these are big words that wrap large groups and large ideas inside of them. This is not attacking any specific person or any specific group. If there's someone out there that hears this and thinks, oh, this is attacking such and such group, then that means that group would be overtly related to these ideas that we're talking to in your mind. And that's not my fault. The result is a culture where people feel discouraged about trying to do the right thing, especially when the wrong behavior appears to always succeed. When we keep rewarding the idea to just go after things and money and power, then why are we surprised when people only care about these things? This reading, the next that we're going to get into, is from As Bill Sees It. Pride is the chief activator of defects. Friends, Bill Wilson often wrote about the role pride plays in human behavior, right? Describing how ego can distort judgment and prevent people from seeing their own faults clearly. If we can't see our own faults clearly, how can we say anything negative about anybody else? Yikes. Pride and ego do not only appear in individual addiction, they appear in every level of human behavior, including the systems and institutions that interact with people every day. When pride dominates decision-making, accountability becomes weaker because admitting mistakes begins to feel, you guessed it, like a threat to identity or status. Oh boy. The struggle for honesty that recovery asks of individuals is often the same struggle society faces collectively, which you've lots of heard people say, well, everyone should have a 12-step group. Everyone should have a 12-step program. Everyone should do these steps of a program. These steps that we talk about in programs don't necessarily only relate to drug addiction. They relate to personal growth and relate to just general growth in general. The struggle for that honesty is something that is real. But if we can just try to be honest and try our best at it, we will find that quite often we succeed. But if people cannot admit mistakes, if people cannot acknowledge flaws, progress becomes extremely difficult because the problems remain hidden behind layers of what? Denial, the keyword we talked about earlier. People do it at all levels and all walks of life. You've heard that before. Oh, people, it's just the way it's always been. Everybody does it. Well, friends, this reflects a reality that recovery programs often emphasize. Addiction may be visible in substances, but the underlying human tendencies toward denial, selfishness, and avoidance appear everywhere. So when someone attacks a drug addict for drug addict behavior, we realize that this is actually just behavior that everybody has. It's just magnified to some extremes. And a lot of times, the same thing that addiction can do to you, pride can also do. It's time to get into some keywords. Number one, hypocrisy. The act of demanding standards from others that one is unwilling to follow personally. And we see this everywhere. Ego, an inflated sense of self-importance that can prevent individuals from acknowledging mistakes or accepting responsibility. Friends, we know that your ego is not something to lightly be trifled with. One must continuously be telling yourself, hey, I'm a human. Not just a human, but I'm a human nonetheless, like everybody else, and no one human is better than another. Period. Not on a basic basic existential level, you know? I mean, we can all make decisions and do things that can probably fuck our standing up in the universe, you know, if you're going out there fucking killing a lot of people or doing a bunch of terrible shit, right? Or worse yet, being super hypocritical and saying one thing and doing another and making people uh, stumble, right? And how about this? Accountability, the willingness to take responsibility for one's actions and accept consequences when necessary. Isn't it good when people accept responsibility for the things they've done? Isn't that what we teach our kids is important? At least that's what I thought that was the case. The mind, the human mind, is highly susceptible to emotional influence, friends, especially when messages appeal to fear, to anger, or to tribal identity. These emotions can easily override rational thinking, making it easier for individuals or groups to justify behavior that might otherwise feel unacceptable. Look, friends, we have sheep feelings. We may think we are wolves, but most of us are just sheepishly sheepy. When people begin reacting emotionally instead of thinking critically, is the issue, and they can become more easily influenced by leaders, institutions, or social movements, things they see online, things they see on memes, or little things that they can click on, things that give you that quick little boost of endorphin or dopamine, right? Not endorphins, but dopamine. Pew Research Center found that 70% of Americans believe political divisions in our country have increased significantly in the past decade. Friends, everybody can see it. Emotional polarization has reshaped the way people interpret and see the world, and especially how they interact with one another. Our body can also get affected by these negative things. While the mental side of manipulation is powerful, it can also produce physical consequences through stress, anger, and constant tension. Friends, if you are angry all the time, if you are jealous all the time, if you are greedy as fuck all the time and never being content, it means you are consistently living through outrage. You are living through rage. You're living through fear. You're living through aggression and conflict. And this type of thing can place a continuous strain on your body, on your stress systems. When people are constantly reacting to emotional triggers and getting outraged, your body remains in that heightened state of alert that can gradually damage both physical and mental health. It's sad and it's frustrating and it makes people want to give up. Oh, that's right, friends. It sucks. And people feel upset. That feeling of exhaustion can emerge when individuals begin believing that positive change is impossible, when they start believing that the world is just doomed, when they start believing that there's nothing that they can possibly do to make the world better, and it leads them from withdrawing from engagement altogether. The American Institute of Stress reports that 77% of Americans regularly experience physical symptoms caused by stress. This, of course, demonstrates how emotional and social tensions can translate into real physical problems and real strain on your ticker. That's right, friends. And we know that if the body and the mind is gone the way, the spirit is yea to follow. Because beyond the mental and physical effects of hypocrisy and manipulation lies the deeper question of moral responsibility. We say, oh, what does this mean for our souls? What does this mean for us? What does this mean for our standing in the universe? Human beings are capable of great compassion and amazing cooperation. Yet they are very, very capable of selfishness and exploitation. We have one side and the other of great extremes. Sometimes use their power for good, others use it for bad, but lots of us use it for self serving reasons at one varying degree to another. The Bible frequently addresses the responsibility that comes with power and influence. And in a nation like America that claims to be a nation of Christians, maybe we should listen to Luke 12:48, where it says, "From everyone who has been given much, much will be demanded." And yes, friends, we see people out there that have so much, yet they continue to keep so much. instead of keeping what they need plus a teeny bit more for funsies, and then the rest do something good with it. No, they keep a bunch of it, and then they keep a bunch more, and then they get angry when they're asked to put an even share towards the good of the world. Interesting, right? The Edelman Trust Barometer reports that only 42% of people globally say they trust government institutions to do what's right. And that's one of the big issues we have here, friends, is we have people that we want to believe in institutions. We want to have these grandiose ideas, but then we don't trust them, and then we have zero accountability in them. People say we can't trust the government, yet we don't hold our leaders accountable when they do the wrong thing, or lie, or are corrupt, or steal money, or inside trade, or use their position to better their financial standing in the world. That should be completely like, talk about 10-year or 10-year mandatory minimum, right? There should be a 10-year mandatory minimum on fucking political corruption. Duh. I'm sure if you started sending these fucking politicians to pound you in the ass prison instead of fucking club fed, they'd shaping up real quick, right? So come on, let's get this shit correct. And this also reflects widespread skepticism towards leadership and authority. Friends, we need leadership and authority. We need laws. We need structures in place that create civility and encourage and enforce laws. But we don't need the people that are in charge to gain so much financially for being in those positions. It's not that difficult to understand. And the struggle between responsibility and self-interest has always existed in human societies. But recovery programs recognize that the same character defects in individuals, when they confront them in the real world, are often confronted in addiction and can appear in broad cultural systems as well. Pride, denial, selfishness can distort judgment at every level of life. And recognizing these patterns does not mean giving up hope, because awareness can also create that opportunity for change. That's right, friends. And we've made it. We've made it all the way to segment 5 of this episode. We have one segment left, and guess what it's called? It's the path back. Because we talked about a bunch of stuff so far. The comfort trap, the slow drift into disconnection, the deeper spiritual imbalance that often sits beneath addiction, right? And the ways that power and ego can distort the human behavior. People don't like that part of the show. Usually segment 4 is the hypocrisy card, where we talk about values and walking the walk and talking the talk. And lots of times individuals don't like to hear that kind of stuff because it makes them realize that the world around them isn't quite exactly maybe what they thought it was. So what do we do from here? I know we like to bitch a lot. It's devil dog addiction, just like the rest of us. But we don't just bitch about things. We actually try to do something about them. We don't do them tomorrow. We try to do them today. And recognizing this problem is only the beginning. Awareness might actually open the door to change, but you got to walk through it. And to do that, it requires a little bit of effort. And that effort is where action happens. And action is where the real transformation begins. Recovery literature has always emphasized this, right? That healing does not come from theory alone, right? It comes from daily decisions, making daily things, small, consistent actions, from the willingness to keep moving forward even when the path feels uncertain. Because we don't always know what's going to be around that next corner. But we know that if we do the right thing, we'll have a base path to always walk upon. Everybody, of course, holds a place and purpose for what they can do. everybody can do something to make things a little bit better. And this, of course, captures something perfect about the human condition, that every single one of us has the ability to contribute any type of something and meaning to the world around them. Even when life has taken difficult turns, even when life has hit you in the face, even when some mistakes that we have made have left scars along the way, sometimes on ourselves and sometimes on other people. But recovery is not about becoming perfect, it's about becoming willing to live differently and being honest, of course, and trying your hardest coming back, right? And this reading in the segment 5 is going to be from the 24 Hours a Day book. We will try to help other alcoholics to recover, and in doing so, we will help ourselves. Friends, we know that when you want to do something better and you've gone through something difficult and hard and you've gotten through it, you need to share that experience. Helping others often becomes the strongest and best way to maintain your own sobriety, right? Your own sobriety and giving back. Giving back is paramount. Service is not simply about charity or obligation. It's actually kind of ridiculous that we have charities in our world. There should be no need for America to have the amount of charities that we have, right? Like, humans should be taken care of a little bit better than this. When people begin supporting others who are facing similar struggles, right? When someone's going through the same thing you are and you try to help them, they discover that their own experiences, both the painful ones and the victories, can become tools that can help other people survive. If you've been through it, someone else can get through it. If I've been through it, you can get through it. Everybody has whatever gift they have to take and contribute. So that means that if you have your special gift that you should be doing to help the world around you when you're not doing it, that's going to be one less use doing the positive thing that you were meant to do. So that's double negative, friends, because you're going to be doing something towards the opposite that is not good. Because if you're not doing something good, you're doing something bad. There's no between. There's no neutral ground. Okay? If you're not going forward, you're going back. Okay? When individuals begin to see themselves as contributors to the world instead of a burden, the entire direction of life can have a little bit of change. You can go a little bit that way or a little bit that way, but whatever way you're going there quick. Time to get into some words for segment 5. Service, the act of helping others as a way to strengthen both personal recovery and community connection. You got to give a little to get a little. Purpose, a sense that one's life has meaning and direction beyond immediate comfort. You need to realize that life isn't just going to be right now. How you feel right now will change. So if you're feeling bad, or you're feeling good, how you feel down the line depends on what effort and ability to focus you can put into it. Responsibility, the willingness to act in ways that improve your own life and the lives of those around you. You can't just care about your own self. You can't just care about you and yours. It's the same thing, right? If you only care about people who are there to care about you, you're not really caring about people. Boom. Drop that motherfucking mic and smoke it. And of this, of course, one thing can relate: the mind. Recovery begins in your mind when a person stops believing that change is impossible. There was once a time when I thought that there was no way that I could ever stop doing drugs. No way I could ever stop drinking. And this shift, of course, needs to happen. And when you can't believe that something is impossible and you begin accepting that growth is still within reach, that's when something changes. When you can have some hope that change is right around the corner, change is right around the corner, friends. But you're not going to learn anything, of course, if you're not open to actually learning something. You're not going to get better if you're not actually specifically taking the time and effort to say, hey, I'm going to try and get better today. The openness, of course, is one of the most important qualities in recovery. We say the willingness to change. Willingness and open. Some people say the willingness and openness, right? They throw that in there too. But the willingness to learn replaces the certainty that once kept people trapped in destructive patterns. We used to think, hey, there's no way that I can get out of this. But then we see someone who has, and we're like, how'd they do that? And then they say, hey, look, you just got to be open to this idea that, hey, maybe if we do it this way, this can change. Research from the National Institute on Drug Abuse shows that about 40 to 60% of people in recovery experience relapse at some point, which demonstrates, of course, that recovery is not a single event, but a long-term process of learning and adaptation. Most people who are true addicts or alcoholics will not go to a rehab or go to AA and be like, okay, I'm an alcoholic. I'm going to get sober today. And then they never drink again. Yes, there's a few people that happens to, because of course statistics to show that, but those are outliers. The majority of us, yes, will have some sort of relapse. Quite a few of us will have a few, and a few select of us will have a shit ton of relapses. It doesn't have to be part of the process, but it most likely is. So when it is part of yours, do not be discouraged by it. If you can get back on the horse and off of whatever drug you're on without dying physically, then we can help. While mental openness, of course, is essential, your body will pay the price. Also requires consistent action in the physical world, right? Daily habits, sleep, exercise, work, some sort of routine that plays an important role in rebuilding stability, because they help restore balance to a body that may have been under tremendous strain. You may have never slept very good for a while. You may have been tweaking out all the time and over the top, ridiculous physical exertion, right? That physical part of addiction can be fixed easily sometimes with chemicals added or chemicals taken away and a little bit of detoxification. But that detoxification and physical stabilization, right, are very important steps, but they're only the beginning of the recovery process. The body part, the physical part, is the early stages of addiction recovery, which is why we see so many people go to detox and be like, okay, I'm done. I'm good now. We'll go back to it. I'll never do use again. Because in your mind at the time, you're like, oh, good, I'm good, right? But no, you're not, because you haven't built up that support yet. Maintaining sobriety, now that's the hard part. Quitting is easy. Staying quit, oh, now that's the difficult part, because that requires creating a lifestyle that supports health and reduces the triggers that once fueled your addiction. You got to identify, you got to do some work, you got to do some mental, some mental work, right? Some mental gymnastics, small physical habits, gradually rebuild that confidence, because each completed task, something that we're not very good at in the past, maybe nothing would get done, but now maybe 2 or 3% of things are getting done. But each time you do something correct and complete it, you will complete the next one that much quicker. Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, of course, estimates that more than 23 million Americans are currently living in recovery from substance use disorder. 23 million peeps out there off the hard stuff. Come on, let's give a round of hand. And on this St. Patrick's Day, we're going to be proud of that. All those people living in recovery, all those people that used to get drunk as a motherfucker on this day, well, not today, Junior. We're just going to go get some video of people getting drunk, and that's going to be fun. And we know that when the mind and body are affected, ye spirit is not far behind. The final piece of this recovery puzzle often involves reconnecting with the deeper sense of meaning that gives life direction and meaning. For many people, this includes spirituality, faith, or a renewed awareness that life is part of something bigger than the individual effort or individual comfort. We've been convinced that we don't really have a problem with spirituality. We think, oh, we go to church on Sundays, so we're good in the hood on the spiritual front. But spirituality and recovery does not require a specific doctrine or belief system, my friends. You don't have to be religious to be spiritual, okay? You don't have to have religion to find the spirituality in recovery, but it often involves humility. It often involves lots of things that coincide with certain religious values. The recognition that human beings thrive when they connect with values greater than themselves is the point. The Bible expresses this one clearly in the Gospel of John, right? But we're going to skip over that because we talked about that earlier. 2020 study found that 27% of if people have spirituality in their recovery journey, there's 27% lower relapse rates. So we're talking about a third of people relapse. Now we're saying that this will lower your relapse rate by almost a third itself. Oh, hot diggity dog. We talk about stats here on Double Dog Addiction because we know that numbers mean something, because they prove that we can actually make some changes and that we can fall in with these numbers. And this also shows that reconnecting with purpose and faith is a very, very positive effect on recovery. Well, my friends, we've made it to the end. Throughout this episode, we've explored several pieces of this puzzle. We began by looking at that comfort trap, that, hey, look, we're told that we should be comfortable and we should focus our life on making things easier, but really that doesn't help us grow and it doesn't help us turn into better people. Then we found out how modern culture often encourages people to avoid difficulty rather than going through it and finding out how to overcome certain situations. Then, of course, we examine how disconnection can slowly weaken motivation and leave individuals feeling isolated from the world around them, feeling disconnected, feeling alone, feeling like their problems are the worst, like they're the only ones suffering from these problems. We've explored the deeper spiritual imbalance that often drives addiction, right? Recognizing that recovery requires addressing not only physical symptoms, you can't just say no to try to fix drug abuse, right? But finally, we looked at that broader human struggle with ego, hypocrisy, power, and acknowledging that the same character defects that individuals confront in recovery also appear in society as a whole. Yet, despite all these challenges, my friend, one truth continues to appear again and again. Human beings are capable of extraordinary change. Some may say a tiger doesn't change its stripes. Oh, people don't change. Oh, nobody changes. Changes. Friends, people can change. You can change. You can change. You get a change. You get a change. You get a change. I get a change. Everybody gets a motherfucking change so we can be different and better tomorrow than who we were yesterday. Recovery is possible, friends. Purpose can be rediscovered. Connection can be rebuilt. And the effort to live with honesty and compassion, it can transform not only individual lives, but entire communities, entire nations, and our world. Well, my friends, as we close today's episode, remember that no matter where somebody is in their journey, whether they're struggling, recovering, or helping others along the path, the possibility of change is always present. May you find the strength to face discomfort rather than hide from it. May you find the courage to speak honestly about your struggles. May you find connection with others who remind you that you are not alone. And may you discover that the path toward healing is not only about leaving something behind, but about building a life filled with purpose, service, and hope. Until next time, my friends, keep moving forward one day at a time. I hope you guys have a wonderful, blessed St. Patrick's Day. Take care and good morning.